married 68 years to Phyllis, and they have one son, 4 grandchildren, 1 great-grandson. Eddie enjoyed a 31-year career in medical school administration, Fiscal Affairs, UK, and Medical College of Georgia. One of his fondest hobbies was coaching youth baseball. As a commissioned minister, he has served several rural churches in Kentucky, Bardwell, Bedford, Carlisle, Lebanon, Oxford, Victory here in Lexington, all disciples of Christ churches. So it is my pleasure to introduce Eddie Parker.
Thank you, and appreciate you coming out on a beautiful, warm morning here in central Kentucky. Now, you fellows sitting on the right over here, if you fall asleep on me, don't worry about it. Last March, the night of March 2nd and the morning of March the 3rd sometime, I lost the sight in my right eye. So if you fall asleep, I won't see you anyway. In a moment, I'm going to tell you a joke that David Shiree and David Rouse reminded me of, which I heard back in 1958 in a history class over at the university. It goes like this. It was the gold rush of 1849. A young man from Kentucky was out there panning for gold, was having some success, and he decided to go into town and clean up a little bit, and his pack animal was a mule. And as he pulls up in front of the saloon and tying up the mule, a drunk comes out of the saloon and looks at him, and the drunk pulls out his gun and points it at the Kentuckian. And he said, "Where are you from?" And the young man says, "I'm from the Commonwealth of Kentucky." And the drunk said, "Well, Mr. Kentuckian, have you ever done a jig?" And the Kentuckian said, "No, I don't think I have." He said, and the drunk said, "Well, you're going to." And he starts shooting at him, his feet. So he jumps around after 6 shots, he realized the gun's empty. So the Kentuckian pulls out his gun, points it at the drunk, says, "Where are you from?" "I'm from California." He said, "Mr. Californian, have you ever kissed the rear of a mule?" He said, "No, but I've always wanted to." Well, David Shiree penciled me in to do this March or April of 2020, and of course, COVID did that in. And then when the call went out for volunteers, against my better judgment, I said, well, maybe I should do it. So I called David Rouse and said, if you can use me, pencil me in. So that's why. And then they caused me to remember that joke from way back when. I don't think I've told it 2 times since then. But in my time with you, I want to share with you the names of some people who've had a great influence and inspiration to me in my adult life. Of course, like everyone here pretty much, our parents got us started. But these individuals have been pretty special. The first one would be Paul Sears. Some of you may remember him. He was a chemistry professor at the university. Dr. Sears taught the adult Sunday school class over at Lafayette Christian Church for a couple of decades. But as a 19-year-old, he was a tail gunner on the B-17, World War II, shot down over Germany on his 14th mission, became a POW in Stalag 17, the famous prison camp that they made a play and also a movie about. And the thing that impressed me about him, even though he had seen the darkest side of humanity, he never lost his faith. He didn't promote it, didn't brag about it, but just there, and you just sensed it. Another person that I'm real fond of that's had an influence, believe it or not, is a young man by the name of Kevin Snow. Now, I was serving Oxford Christian Church at the time. I got to give you a little story here. I was 71, a throwback to the 1950s. Kevin comes out to us. This is about 2004. He's 21 years old. Now, that's an odd couple right there. First-year resident or seminary student. Looked the part. Long hair, sandals, blue jeans with holes in the knees. And I saw him, I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be a trip. Well, I learned real quick. Kevin was the real deal. He was a 5-star recruit, extremely bright, extremely dedicated, and very strong in his faith. And we had a tremendous, not only run, but we had a tremendous relationship, and still to this day. And I think I learned more from him than he did from me. The other is Doctors Bill Paulsell and Jerry Shumney. Their scholarship and their willingness to share that scholarship with lay folk by teaching not only Sunday school, but also book groups, and also out at the Lay School of Theology at LTS. A little sidebar on Bill Paulsell. I can tell this now since he's not here. In the mid-1980s, he was president over at LTS, and we were living in Augusta, Georgia, and I was teaching the young adult Sunday school class. We had a men's retreat, and he had him down as a keynote speaker. Typical weekend, Friday night, Saturday morning, and he's going to preach on Sunday. Well, because I'd had enough of that church work on Friday night and Saturday morning, I did not prepare for Sunday school. Well, I walk in on Sunday morning about 9:30. Guess who's sitting there? Now, Phyllis, I did not wet my pants, but I wanted to. And it took me years to forgive him for that, and he knew it, to just show up. But we had a good time. Another one is Laura Lee. Laura Lee is a young woman I never met, never even saw her picture, but I read her story. She was a young mother, under 30, 2 small children, diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her scum-sucking, low-life husband all of a sudden disappeared when they announced that she was deathly sick. But her favorite Bible passage was Psalm 116, verse 15, which goes like this: it is precious in the eyes of the Lord the death of his faithful ones. And I said, how can that be? Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his faithful one. Why could she pick that one? Well, she had kept a journal, and the medical staff that had taken care of her had that journal published. And I was able to, through the bookstore at LTS, get a copy of that and read it a couple of times with a lot of reverence, you can imagine. But I found that she pretty much followed the game plan that we see in Psalms 37, verse 5, which basically says, commit to God, trust God, and God will act. And she truly believed that waiting her beyond death was the resurrection. And I was impressed, and her story has always been in my mind. Another one is Bill Kerwood. Just about everybody here remembers, or knew Bill. To me, Bill Kerwood was the gold standard for ministry. I had a lot of respect for him, also, and I would study him in my position as basically as a commissioned minister, just to learn from him without him even trying to teach. And as you well know, he was very good at it. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Phyllis, my wife. Now, she was a good kid at age 14, and she's still a good kid today. She has been very supportive of me in my commission ministry role. We travel those back roads of Kentucky to the places that you've already heard about. She never once complained, always extremely, extremely supportive. And really and truly, she is the epitome of Proverbs 19:14, which says, a prudent wife is a gift from God. I truly remember that. Now, fellas, I've had my moment of what I call discomfort. That would be my wilderness, my desert, and that would be associated with my health. Now, I'm not going to regale you with my medical history, but I will say this. For my first 65 years, I was one of these guys that had really good health. I was never an inpatient in a hospital. Well, the last 25 years, it hadn't been that way. I've been inpatient at UK probably a dozen times. I quit counting. Each time I went, I'd probably spend on average 3 nights. I facetiously tell people that you put me on a gurney, let me look at the ceiling, and I'll tell you where we are and where we're headed. But my bill over there probably is somewhere between $2.5 to $3 million, may even be more. I got where I couldn't count anymore. It got so high. Really, it has. But I've been very fortunate, as I will share with you in a minute. But I will say one thing, and this is for you younger guys. I want to talk a little bit about prostate cancer. We've heard a lot about that in the news of late. Now, fellas, we're told 1 out of 8 is going to have it. So get ready. So you older guys, you've already been through it, so you're not worried. But you younger guys, this is something to look forward to. Now, they can treat it different ways, as you well know, depending on the intensity of the degree of the disease. Now, I elected to have the procedure. Now, what I found out was procedure is a code word for they gonna cut on you, boy. Well, after I had my procedure, I noticed I had a catheter in my private parts. And on the second day, I got to thinking, how did they get that catheter in there? And on the 5th day, I started thinking, how are they going to get that catheter out of there? Well, on the 15th day, I found out. They had me in a little exam room. I was naked as a jaybird, except for the hospital gown that opens in the back. And in walks this nurse. Now, she is not a cute young thing at all. The one I had looked like she had just retired after a 30-year career as a nurse in the United States Marine Corps. She had the tattoos to back it up. I'll never forget what she said. She looked at me and she said, and I remember this as if it was yesterday, my, what do we have here? Well, that makes you feel about that tall. Now, fellas, I'm not going to tell you what she did next, but I'll tell you this. It did not enhance my spiritual life. So get ready. But something I've always thought about, I realize I'm very, very lucky in my 90th year, but during all that time of in and out of the hospital and seeing the doctors, I never was depressed, or I never did say, oh God, why me? And I'd ask my wife, I said, do I seem depressed to you? And she said, no, you're just your usual boring self. And when I come to church, if we get here early, and Mr. Holcomb playing the organ, I like to take out the hymnal and just read some of the hymns. And I'll do that on occasion. And just about 6 months ago, I was reading, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. I said, ooh, wait a minute. The Bible tells me so. A light went on. Because you see, while I was having those medical issues, I was also still able to serve churches. I was into the Bible, preparing homilies, and as you can probably tell, I should have read Fred Craddock's book on preaching more than once, and then also conducting Bible studies. That helped me there. So I was very fortunate. I think that's one of the reasons. Some would say, well, you just had something to do. Well, that's true, but I think there's a little more to that than this. There's a country western song that I can't recall the title and don't even know who the artist was, but it goes something like this. Old women talk about old men. Old men dream dreams. I find myself doing that. I think about all the cohorts I've known over the years, think about them, wondering what's happened to them. And I did an inventory just recently, about last fall, really. And to my shock, I found out that about 90% of them are already deceased. Well, that begs a question that I ran into in Christian Century, I'll say a couple months ago, and the question went like this: what does it mean to be the one who continues to survive? What does it mean to be the one who continues to survive? Now, I know all the cliches. I even every month, religiously, I check AARP magazine to see what I've done right or wrong. But I think Dr. Paul Sale summed it up best. He pointed out to us one time in his lay school course about 20 years ago that Psalm 27:10 might be the major theme of the Bible. And it goes like this: if my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. If my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Paul Sayers believed that. Laura Lee believed that. Bill Kerwood believed that. And I believe that. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Eddie. We appreciate your gifts. Next month, which I think the second Saturday falls on the 10th, our speaker will be Brandon Gilvin, I understand. So we will look forward to that. Are there any other news announcements? Again, be on your way. Yes, Paul.
Remind everyone, tomorrow night will be the community Martin Luther King worship service. I want to say 35 years in a row now. Central has hosted.
Yeah, Martin Luther King service here tomorrow night at 6, is it? 6. Yes, always an inspiring event. Yes.
Betty and I are snowbirds, so we're leaving. We'll be gone for a while, but we'll miss you guys. We'll be back in April and see you. You can see us online.
Yeah, see us online. Yeah. Stay connected. Yeah.
See this online, which is always worthwhile to go back and look at some of the previous speakers if you haven't, missed a bunch of them or something like that. Is it in real time? Well, not real time, like on Saturday morning, but it's recorded and posted online. So
Yeah.
And so all the speakers we've had now, which is probably close to 40 now.
That sounds about right.
35, 40. You can see them, except the very first one.
Which was Wayne Bell. Yeah.
And we were 20 seconds into it, and a few of us looked at each other and going, we should be recording these.
Yeah.
And it was a little too late to pick that one up. But other than that, I think we've got them all
all.
out there.
Okay. Have a good day and a good week.
Anybody want to stick around, help clean up at school too?
Yes. Clean up.